Hello everyone, today I'm going to be taking a look at the Mortal Enemies expansion from Osprey Games for Frostgrave and some of the miniatures from Northstar that accompany it. Alright, here is the Mortal Enemies book then, for Frostgrave 2nd edition, although if you're still playing first, it'll work for first without much difficulty. Written by Joe, again, and illustrated by Rumour. And the illustrations are absolutely stunning, as usual. The book itself is a massive 94 pages, 95 if you include the enemy sheet at the end, which we'll get to in a moment. And it's split up into a host of chapters. So, as the name suggests, a big part and parcel of this is your mortal enemy. So creating the mortal enemy and their warband, how they play in games and in campaigns, so they can level up as well. There's a section of solo scenarios, and then there's a section on constructing your wizard's base. So how you live when you are in the frozen city, protecting your treasure before you go south to spend it or whatever it is wizards do when they've got all that treasure. And then, speaking of, some new treasures and beastry at the end, or bestry, depending on your point of view. So what are mortal enemies? Essentially, they are a nemesis or an adversary. They are the mumra to your Lion-O. So even though you may be out doing Lion-O type things, fighting against your opponent or playing solo games, somebody within the city has taken a dislike to you, and every now and again they will show up randomly and stick their oar in when you weren't expecting it, which is, I think, delightful and really adds to the narrative feel and flavour of Frostgrave. So the first thing you do is come up with your concept for your enemy. And you can pull in other things from other books as well, but it could be a werewolf or a lich, even a fire giant, which would be terrible. 50% of the time it's going to be some form of humanoid, but because Frostgrave doesn't define what a humanoid is, it could be a human, it could be an elf, could be a dwarf, could be a ratman. It's entirely up to you where you go with this. They stat up in a similar way to your wizards themselves, and then they have their own set of sort of ranged attacks and spells and that sort of thing. So you put together essentially a little warband that your ranged enemy, or that your mortal enemy has. He has a gang, and he will come after you. If I skip on, the interesting thing for me is there's like it's like peaks and waves. So at the start of a game before you play, you grab your D20 and then you roll to see whether or not your mortal enemy is going to get involved in this game. And if they show up, or if it says they are going to show up, then the next game they won't. So it's like flicking a switch on and off. So roll to see if they're going to appear. They appear next time. If you roll you set their value at 21, and if you roll a 20 or less on a D20, which you will, then they don't show up, and then that switch is flipped again. So you're going to encounter them intermittently. However, even if they're going to show up, you don't know when they're going to show up. So when they deploy, they come in on a random turn. So you could get them right from the start of the game, or they may not show up until very near the end. And if it happens that you get through and get out quickly, you may not see them, even though they're supposed to be there. So there's always a state of flux with them. But then when they do appear, they have different motivations in different games. So the warband works in a randomized AI way. So you may see them, you may not. When you do see them, you don't know what they're going to be doing. Are they going to be chasing your treasure? Are they going to be coming solely after the wizard? What is your enemy's plan for today as they attempt to corral and maneuver and thwart your schemes. So that's really nice. There is obviously the campaign system then as well, and more of rumours. Really gorgeous artwork. So as they go through, they will level up as your wizards are leveling up. It does say that they are based up to about level 15 as far as complementing your wizard goes. If you want to be playing them against a wizard of a higher level, then you're going to have to do a bit of tweaking yourself, but that's what this game is all about. So sets of new scenarios is nice. Then we get into a set of 5 sort of solo scenarios. There's our Paleocore. We'll take a look at the models that have come out for this in a moment as well. These scenarios are, like I say, 5 solo scenarios have been added, which can be used to sort of rebalance. If you're constantly getting thumped by your mortal enemy, you can play some solo scenarios. Maybe you'll win, get some level ups, get some new treasure, whatever. Or maybe you'll get absolutely spanked by the solo scenarios as well. That's the joy of campaigns. You never know what's going to happen. So 5 scenarios in there. And then at the end, we get into the wizard base. So it's a way of putting together your base of operations that can be upgraded over time as well, which is handy because sometimes you might get raided, in which case you'll need constructs to protect it, explosive runes to trap it, whatever it happens to be. There's obviously new spells and abilities and treasure as well in here, which gives you some nice changes. And as always, these are compatible across all of the books, so you can throw them in or out. There's a corpse wrangler wrangling a corpse. So the book, as always, stuffed full of possibilities and potential. And like all of Frostgrave, you can pick and choose. So maybe you'll use all of the mortal enemy rules and maybe not the wizard's base for a while, or maybe you want to keep the mortal enemy on the back burner, but you're playing a game or campaign with friends already, and now you can introduce your bases into that. So yeah, definitely want to take a close look at if you're into your Frostgrave. And speaking of close looks, let's have a look at the miniatures that go with them. All right, so I have the 2 blisters here for the Mortal Enemies book. These are all one piece. This little fella just needs his wings on. So before we get into them in any great detail, I'm just going to go ahead, pop him out, glue him together, and then I'll be back. Okay, so taking a look at the Paleocore first, like a manticore but slightly different. This Aslan looking fellow there. So build is just the 2 wings on. The detail on it is very crisp. I've not done any cleanup beyond putting the wings on, so there's little bits of flash just between the legs there, bit of a seam line that runs under the belly and under the tail, so you can see where it was molded. Really nice texture on the back. These aren't, or this isn't fur. These are little sort of poisonous porcupine quills that it can fire out up to 16 inches, I believe. Despite its wings, it cannot fly. They are, I'd say, vestigial, except they were deliberately put on the creature in the breeding pits. They just never worked. So, it is what it is. Size-wise, we are around 25mm to eye level, about 28 to the top of his crest, and then front to back you are looking around about 40mm from tip of tail to tip of nose. So a really nice model, very crisply presented as always from North Star. Then the other group are the corpse wranglers and the murder jacks. So the corpse wrangler is actually a double-headed snake, and when I say double-headed, the description is that both ends of the tail terminate in a head. So head all the way round, another head, like Tulsa Doom's sigil in Conan. And these things find a corpse, burrow into its eye, eat through its brain and burrow out of the other eye, and then reanimate the corpse. So all the fun of undead, but being controlled by, or wrangled, if you prefer, by these snakes. So, one-piece model. Again, good, clean sculpt. Some small amount of flashing that will need to be cleaned up, and a little bit of seam line. But I don't even think it's going to be visible on the camera. It's so minor on this one. So the cast is really, really top quality. Because it is a one piece, relatively flat. However, you know, it is what it is. I'd much rather have a somewhat flattened sculpt and a clean cast than have an overly dramatic one that requires excessive cleanup to make it work, or alternatively, a multi-part version. I'm not at home to that. This little fellow is 28mm to corpse eye level, and then either 25 or let's say 31 to corpse wrangler eye level, which is, you know, cute. And then the murder jacks. So we have a massive, when I say massive, its body is about the same size as the torso and head of a human, perched on a little obelisk or standing stone. Yeah, wonderful detail on it, and a really nice figure. This bigger one is 28mm to the top of the bird, 25 to eye level, and then there's also an additional, slightly smaller one. Tag on the base means you can pop it onto anything you want, so a bit of modelling possibilities there, or find a sign to put it on or something like that. But a nice set of figures. Obviously with the corpse wranglers, I imagine if you're going to be using a lot of these, because they have the ability to replace other creatures in some of the solo scenarios, you might want to go ahead and convert a few of your own. You just need to pick up some snakes and then just go nuts with some zombies. All right, there we go. 95 pages of loveliness from Joe once again. Stunning book. Obviously the production quality is great with Osprey's series anyway. But the contents in there, the ability to add these nemesis to your games is just fantastic. I love the idea also of multiple nemesis cropping up in one game. Say you're playing a multiplayer game with your club or your friends as part of a campaign, and maybe in one game both nemesis appear and you get caught in an unholy crossfire. There's just so much you can do with Frostgrave in that sort of narrative adventure, which is just terrific. Added to which then obviously the base construction, giving you somewhere to rove out from, just adds another level to campaigning within the frozen city as well. So Felstad's never looked so homely and inviting, has it? On top of that, obviously Nick at Northstar does some terrific models for a whole host of games, and these, while not 100% necessary, except, well, maybe the Paleocore, whatever it is, the little spine-throwing Manticore wannabe. Probably not an easy model to find in another range, because it's obviously something that's come from Joe, but You know, they're nice to have those options, and the miniatures themselves are always really good quality. So if you want to be a completionist, you can do that thing. And let me know what you think below of Mortal Enemies, if you've already picked it up and are using it in your campaigns. I'd love to find out what it's been like for you. Until next time, bye-bye.
Go ahead and check out our other content on screen now. And while you're at it, why not hit subscribe and remember to ding our dong. Go on, you know you want to click it. Go on.